decide that he's going to throw away his whole attempt to get power, which relies on Liza, and go with this younger version of her sister. It's her being very paranoid, and that's just part of her mental state, is like, don't trust anybody. But ultimately, I don't know, if she has this no trust of anybody type thing, how did she get wrapped up in this whole plot with Littlefinger? And it's there's really this is a unstable situation, and I think Littlefinger knows that, and I think that's with the episodes coming up ahead. I think that's why he makes some very effective decisions to really tie this long-term scheme. He's gonna basically wrap it up as a gift and end it at the end of the day.
As we see, yeah. And like I said, I will give Lysa credit in one instance. She does kind of scare Sansa into confirming her beliefs. And Sansa, again, uses some of her defense mechanisms that she used in King's Landing when she realizes, oh, just because I'm out of King's Landing does not mean that the danger is over. Again, like, I feel like Lysa's almost pulling a Walter White there, where she's like, oh, you thought they were the danger. No, I'm the danger, And, and it does reveal some of Lysa's poor attempt at planning, which, as we see, will not come to pass at all. When she's like, it's interesting because it's a little bit of a retcon in the books where she says, okay, once the Lannisters killed Tyrion for murdering Joffrey, then, which again, I'm wondering like how much of a hand she had in helping Littlefinger with Joffrey's death. Hopefully none. But whereas she's like, yeah, once they kill Tyrion, you'll be able to marry Robin. And that ultimately is Littlefinger's plan, because the whole thing in the books is, again, slightly different. But after Littlefinger kills Lysa in the books, Sansa basically spends the entire of A Feast for Crows having to deal with, the trial, them wondering if, the other Lords of the Vale, wondering if Littlefinger had anything to do with it. And then ultimately at the end, what's it called? Littlefinger kind of reveals his plan to, because Littlefinger also has Sansa still disguised as his niece Elaine, which is something that Lysa does not know about in the books. Or she does rather, but she keeps it on the down low. And he reveals that after he kills Lysa, that he's going to marry Sansa to Robin and reveal her identity, because he knows that Robin will be too sickly and weak to actually, hold down the title of the Vale. So he knows that he's like, look, when Robin dies, I'll reveal your identity, and then we'll rule Winterfell and the Eyrie together through your name. And that's kind of where we leave off with Sansa and Littlefinger in the book. We haven't seen anything new of them since then. So I think that's really interesting that we're kind of like already, again, this was already an indication of how fast the show was surpassing the books, where we were already at the point where a lot of the arcs in the show, in the books, kind of left off. So that was just another like interesting point to bring up about the book. Also, one last like hilarious bit. Sansa's face during Lysa's, screams of euphoria. Let's call it
euphoria, passion. I think that's it's comedy, right? It's pretty much, Sansa's in the guest room, and Littlefinger and Lysa are in the master bedroom, and they haven't seen each other in years potentially. This whole plot has been kind of dragging on. And so, Lysa is someone that is, newly in love, or at least has been, in love the last few years with Littlefinger and this whole plot and everything. So the fact is, this is sort of like that long awaited, reunion between the two of them. And Sansa, unfortunately, is just kind of stuck there overhearing it from the guest bedroom. And it's just one of those things where it's like, out of the frying pan and into the fire. Like, Sansa cannot escape just like being, almost like tortured just by other people, and just like what their desires are. It's like she just wants to live in, sort of like, that dreamlike world, the perfect world, like that her character started off in. The whole idea that, oh, Joffrey's a prince and I want to marry a prince, and like princes are perfect. It's one of those things where, the character started off with that sort of, basically the blinders on, and that's the type of world she believed in. And, she continues time and time and time again to really see what the real world is. But yet she's not quite playing the game yet. She's not trying to get herself out of these situations or manipulate situations. She's not really, at that level quite yet. So unfortunately, she's still that young woman who is in the guest room having to deal with what else is going on. She's not in control or have any real attempt to seize control at this point in time.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Yeah. And I think that, again, talking about the comedy of this episode, I think that's a nice transition into our 2 brief check-ins that we have in the Riverlands before we get to, the ending thing with the wrap-up of the Night's Watchman north of the wall. But first we have what I like to call the beginning of the misadventures of Brienne and Podrick Payne, where Pod can't ride a horse, can't cook a rabbit,
like lighting the rabbit on fire and then stomping on
great.
it.
Oh, it was great.
It's fantastic.
It's great.
Like,
yeah.
All
these
scenes
do is untie her armor. That's about all he can do.
These scenes, it's fun because it's just comedic, and it's just, it reminds you that these characters that we've learned to love these 2 characters, and I think they're some of the best characters of the show. And these scenes here are almost like completely useless. It's just like, hey, they're starting their adventure. They're kind of, getting off to a little bit of a rough start. I think they're warming up to each other, but like, that's about it. There's really nothing else going on in this particular sequence with Brienne and Podrick. And it's, I'm fine with that, but again, we're going to have to wait until we see how this storyline evolves in the next couple episodes.
Absolutely, yeah. But the one interesting bit does come from them, in between all the comedy. Brienne is like, I don't need a squire. I don't want you. You're only going to slow me down. The only reason why you're even with me is so that you could get out of the city safely. And he's like, Podrick kind of knows, like, yeah, I'm going to be dead if I'm not with someone. And he kind of understands that, even if he's only saying it in so many words. Like I said, Podrick Payne, again, inexperienced, but not stupid. I give him a lot of credit. And we see that at the end of the thing, where it's like, and she's like, do you even know anything about combat? And he kind of admits, like, I killed a guy, And she's like, what? She almost like does a double take there. And she's like, how? And she's like, how did that happen? And she's like, I was protecting Tyrion on the during the Battle of the Blackwater, and I killed the Kingsguard. She's like, how? I love the reaction.
Well, it shows his loyalty to Tyrion, that he's willing to do whatever it takes to the person that he's serving with. And I think there's a little bit of respect that comes from Brienne hearing that story, and she believes it. He has no reason to lie at this point to her. And, I think the fact that he's that loyal and that trustworthy, I think that's really what resonates with her.
Yes, absolutely. And speaking of loyal and trustworthy, we cut to our other scene in the Riverlands with just more comedy bits. Arya and the Hound continuing to make their trek towards the Eyrie.
Just with some dancing,
The comedy here is on point. Like, oh man, I love the bit. Again, Arya's saying her list of names before she falls asleep. The Hound is basically telling her to shut the fuck up. He's like, look, shut up and get some sleep, And she's like, I have to say my list of names. And they kind of have a little bit more of like, sociopath versus sociopath in the making kind of bonding, where she's like, evil's, anger and rage in people's just as good a way, to get to sleep, And she's like, when she says his brother's name, she's like, maybe if you ever get a shot at your brother, maybe we'll both get to cross a name off their list, Again, more mutual admiration, more kind of like sharing stuff with each other. And then he's like, well, you got to finish your list. May as well do it before you fall asleep. And she says, oh, just one. That you kind of, again, I love the back and forth that these two have, because every time the Hound is like taking shots at Arya takes shots right back at him, and vice versa. Like, it's such a, like, it's like, it really is like a buddy road adventure, basically, between the two of them. And again, all this extra time that we get to spend with them, which again, really is such a concentrated amount of time in the books. It really, I think, is something special. And in a strange way, leads to, again, to me, still one of the best parts about those problematic last couple episodes, in the moment where he tells her, get out of the city, don't become dead inside like me. I actually think that, like, that was one of the few, like, wholly original show moments that, like, was actually earned. But it leads to the next morning when he catches her with the water dancing, and he's like, oh, really? What do you call it? He's like, is that supposed to be training and fighting? She's like, no, it's dancing. And then they kind of, like, again, have another one of their back and forths that they've been having, that he's slowly been teaching her throughout the entirety of this season, where he's like, honor and glory and skill, none of that means shit if you're dead. It's like, you gotta have, he's like, you want to know why your dancing master lost to Marintrant? Because he didn't have his sword and he didn't have armor, ultimately, when Arya is trying to once again say, hey, it was, but he would have if this happened. And the Hound's kind of like, Britt says to her, like, woulda, coulda, shoulda. No such thing. In this world, you live or you die. And that's all that there is to it, and like she tries to poke him in the armor and he knocks her out, again, just more life lessons. I feel like they should have entitled this entire section of the show like life lessons with Arya and the Hound,
Yeah, no, I think the whole, and I love the acting though. The dancing moves were sort of well choreographed. It kind of was believable that someone taught her these things, and also believable that it's just her making it up, and dancing, so it's one of those things where I feel like where it came from and just giving the Hound something to criticize her with, I think it was well done and perfect. And, the fact is, again, the Hound knocks her right onto the ground, takes the needle away from her, and, proves his point that, it's like, Meryn Trant just had a bigger sword, and that was the case,
Or in this case,
sometimes that wins battles.
Or in this case, a sword, because as we remember all the way back to season 1, poor Serial only had those 2 wooden sparring swords with him, a little bit underprepared, a dancing master, the first sword of Bravos. I don't know. I don't want to ever take away from the honorable characters of the show, but there's a reason why all the honorable characters are, dead and all the unhonorable characters are, alive, as the Hound consistently points out. So it's like, the Hound might have a couple points here, just as far as like, maybe you don't want to go into that super unprepared.
I think, there's a reason why the unhonorable characters, sort of get the advantage, at least for a few episodes before they get, their untimely demise. But for the most part, you're right. It's one of those things where the game is cruel, and if you're not really careful, you're not really aware of what's going on, the reality between the lines, that's when you get sloppy. That's when you become a Joffrey, and you're really just you're not playing the game. You're just making rash decisions, pouring wine all over your uncle, and coming up with these offensive plays that no one but Tommen likes. It's like you just don't care. You're flaunting your power in front of everybody.
Yeah.
And, in the Game of Thrones, like, everybody wants that chair. So you flaunting your power and showing that you don't deserve any respect or anything really puts you in a dangerous position. And, I think that's one of the things that we can learn from this show when we watch it and kind of look at it. It's like, who's really not paying attention to the details, who's really not, doing what they should to protect themselves and the people that are around them. They clearly always reached their untimely demise.
Absolutely. Well, who also was not paying attention to their surroundings and reached their untimely demise in this episode?
Oh man, is it Locke here?
It is Locke.
Not to be confused with John Locke the philosopher.
John Locke the philosopher, exactly. I mean, again, we talked about it last episode. Again, this sequence that happens north of the wall, it's awesome. It's a great action sequence. Again, we're building off of the amazing setup from last week. Again, Locke, not a great plan. Again, we talked about it last week. Again, just the logistics of his plan. So he's going to take this crippled kid who has grown quite significantly since that first season. He's like basically a teenager now. He's going to drag this prepubescent, this teenage kid who can't walk, however many leagues it is from Crassus to the wall, somehow make it through the wall, get past the Night's Watch. And then even if he makes it past the Night's Watch somehow without losing his head, he's got treks upon treks of miles of wildling forces, of wildling, infested land to get through before he even makes it to Winterfell to Dreadfort. So, like, not a great plan here, just logistically.
Yeah, no, I can concur with you, but Jon Snow does compliment him on, oh man, you are silent.
You are silent. You're a good tracker.
Yeah, he comes out of the woods and like he almost scares Jon and the rest of the brothers. And, I think it's one of those things where he does have a very particular set of skills, right? As they would say for Taken,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
But like John Locke, his days are numbered. Like this episode is his plan, like you said, is just really bizarre. Like at the end of the day, you're in enemy territory. There's wildlings around you. There's White Walkers. There's the Night's Watch. All you really needed to do, they were all tied up. Just take care of them all. Right. Just like you could have easily just killed them all and then gone back and be like, hey, Lord Bolton, I took care of, Bran. And that's all that they really needed.
Right.
Like, did they really need him alive? I don't think.
Yeah.
It's like that wasn't really
just from the Bolton standpoint. It would have made way more sense for them to kill Bran rather than keep him alive. Yeah,
I understand that they like to torture people.
What's going on, guys? Dom, the movie nerd of Talkin TV here, and if you like this video, make sure you click the subscribe button and the like button and leave a comment down below. Make sure you keep tuning in for new episodes, which we have going live every Sunday. That's right, every Sunday at 11 a.m. And as always, remember to always watch more fucking movies.